Hello, I'm the Prince, and today I'm going to prove to you that Sao is good and help you break free from this matrix, as nowadays it's become fashionable to criticize certain things. I won't be able to address everything on this video, otherwise it would get being ridiculously long, but I'll focus on the main points. Remember, if you disagree or have any doubts about something, leave a comment. I've met many people who say things like Sword Art Online should have focused on Aincrad, which is the first half of the first season, or Kirito is a poorly developed character, Sao has bad characters and directionless story, it lost its way after Aincrad, or those who simply didn't like it from the beginning, pointing out numerous script flaws or defects. And literally all these people I questioned, literally all of them have only watched the anime, they haven't read the original material. So this is where I will base my argument, and I explain and show you why it's good. And just saying that, I'm not trying to refute you, in fact I'm just trying to show you that this story has also good points and not only bad ones. So let's start. I will base myself in the original material, as I said, and why the Sao's name is poorly made. If you dislike it, it might not be your fault. You simply might not have understood what the author intended to convey with this story, and that's due to the poor adaptation of the anime. I even consider the third season one of the worst adaptations I've ever seen, not presenting the true story correctly, and I've noticed inconsistencies that, like I seen where a character says one thing and in the light novel it's literally the opposite. It's crazy. If you have read the light novel and still disagree with me and thinks that Sao is still genuinely bad, then you've really got me. But at least you should understand where the story is trying to go, right? I say this because the anime has many flaws in adapting the original, and Sword Art Online is a very popular work worldwide. Therefore, there is a large audience in the West, precisely because the West doesn't consume light novels as the Japan, that criticize the series as a whole, but out of ignorance they don't know many of the arguments are actually refuted by the light novel itself. But unfortunately, the anime inability or poor adaptation prevented it from properly developing the world and characters. So it's completely understandable if you don't like the anime, because I don't like it either. This is my opinion on analysis of the Sao work based on its original material, the light novel. Honestly, Sao is an inconstant story. It starts with potential but is not incredible. It just starts at good level, then it becomes kinda okay. I consider Aincrad good, Fire Dance as well overall. I find the arcs are a good level, but it declines a bit from GGO. Although this arc is quite important for Kirito, the rest of it is kinda mid. And the Mother Rosario arc, which I personally don't care for. So what makes a difference? Alicization. This is where Sword Art Online completely shifts level, and I like to say that everything in Sword Art Online before Alicization is built up for Alicization. It's easily one of the best arcs I've ever consumed, if not the best. Anyways, but before we talk about the grand climax of Sao, I want to discuss the strengths of the pre-Alicization arcs. Kayaba Akihiko, the man who wanted to play God. Kayaba is one of the best villains I've ever seen and the best antagonist in the series. Kayaba wanted to play God. He had something akin to a God complex or delusions of grandeur. His dialogue with Kirito and Asuna at the end of Aincrad shows a clear deconstruction of him throughout his childhood, when he dreamed of a floating castle in the sky, through his developer phase, when he worked on the Nevergian Sao projects, and finally to Sao itself, where he fought alongside people who desperately wanted to escape that place. Some didn't, but Kayaba fought on the front lines, where the majority wanted to escape. Kirito is very similar to Kayaba Akihiko, who lacked the ability to connect with people and ended up seeking another world, creating a new universe to find those connections. Perhaps this is the real reason Kirito was chosen by fate, to be the one who would seek the answers that the scientist himself couldn't find. In the light novel, there is a metaphor about the floating castle of Aincrad regarding Kayaba. Basically, Kayaba was going near the castle every day, but eventually he couldn't get close anymore. He placed the castle with the connections he had before leaving home and starting to study and stand out as a brilliant scientist, ultimately losing real human contact. He saw himself as a creator and visionary, not a typical malicious or greedy villain, but rather someone with a distorted view of reality. This is exactly what Kirito experiences throughout most of the series. Kayaba was a great villain and remains relevant in the story to this day. I admit that Sao isn't great at creating villains in general, but Kayaba makes up for all of them. Second point, Kirito's development. Although you might try to disagree with the previous point, this one is honestly indisputable. It's one of the best characters development, and Sword Art Online is an extremely complex story, and that's neither a merit nor a demerit. So the development of this character goes a long way. At first, Kirito was like Kayaba, someone using the virtual world to escape, ignore reality. But in the end, he becomes something better. Kayaba abandons the real world for the virtual one, while Kirito embraces both worlds as part of his life. Not only in this part of his development, but also the fact that we can divide the character in two phases. He is different before Aincrad and after Aincrad. Kirito starts at 14 years old who isolates himself from his family, upon discovering he was adopted, diving into the virtual world to escape reality. This isolation is evident during the beta period of Sword Art Online, where he spends much of his time with the Nevergear. In this post-Aincrad phase, now more mature, he begins to develop his own ideals, strongly influenced by themes of freedom and technological regulation, discussed in dialogues with characters like Ikoka. He evolves as a character before we reach the climax of the series, which is Alicization, but he still had a long way to go, even in Alicization, which added more layers to the character. Before and during Aincrad, we encounter a closed-off and social solo player Kirito, who has very little interaction with others and seems like an extremely unsympathetic person. After Aincrad, we get to know the sociable and cheerful Kirito. So I ask you, did you never notice this? Or did you always think he was cheerful in that way? The answer is no. That's part of how Asuna changed Kirito's life. Not just her, but also the friendships he made in Aincrad to overcome the trauma he experienced when that thing happened with Sachi. In fact, Sachi's story is one of the pillars for his character's development. He was very relevant for the story. When the game releases, in fact, one of the first episodes of the series in anime and in the light novel as well, that beta is seen, a mix of cheater and beta tester. After the incident of that first floor boss room, that's Kirito taking on a villain role to protect other beta testers from discrimination. This shows his good heart and sense of responsibility. That's the idea behind that scene. I haven't touched on the title Black Swordsman as well, which many people misunderstand, acting as if Kirito actually embraced this title, when in fact he never liked it from the beginning. If you haven't noticed, then let me say it now. Kirito being the badass inside Sao doesn't matter. That's why you are disappointed about that. The idea of Sao isn't for him to be the man, the guy who will excel, but rather a person who is suffering and struggling to overcome his problem. All this preparation, along with the fiery arc, which I consider a great development for Sugha, Kirito's sister, lead us to the series' masterpiece, Analyses. All of Kirito development will reach its peak through an adventure with the best character in the entire story of the novel, simply Yushio. Yushio is Kirito's best friend and something Kirito has always wanted. Someone his age with a high level of intimacy to expose his weakness. Neither Klein nor Agile could be as close to Kirito as Yushio. Kirito didn't consider anyone else as a close friend besides Yushio. You might be disappointed at first due to the way Kirito treats his friends, but then I realized something. Kirito is a person with several inherent issues of a large part of the Japanese population, which is introversion and the social inability to relate with people. Now think about this. If you are a closed-off person, doesn't mean you hate others, but that you simply can't break through your inhibitions and truly be yourself with others, not being able to form real bonds. When he started playing in the virtual world, he couldn't even empathize with anyone because he had never done it before. In a bizarre way, he was a completely fool when it came to friendship. So when he ended up relating to others, It was basically due to his monstrous skills in the games. Everyone who got treated around him ended up labeling him, assuming he was the guy, always expecting great things from him. But no one ever assumed he could be a kid with problems, and it wasn't their fault, it was the image Kirito projected. And since he had been through a situation like this, he could really open up to them due to his insecurity. It doesn't mean Kirito considered these characters as his pseudo friends, or the contrary. He only acted that way, hiding his feelings because he didn't know how to handle them. Asuna is a completely different case, as she and Yui are the pillars of his life. All Kirito was looking for was a connection to help with this issue, and Yuji is that connection. Seeing him as he truly is, without assumptions or labels, teaching in a way that a pure and simple friendship is. A friend of his age and gender, a confidant. All his other friends have always been girls of various ages or adults. Tell me now, can you relate better to someone of your age and gender than with people who aren't? I am not sure you can. Well, Kirito needed such a parameter to open up to others in his circle of friends, so in reality he needed a best friend like Yuji to truly be real with his other friends or loved ones, as he defined them himself. And that's why Kirito is very similar to Kayaba Akihiko, but our swordsman preferred to unite everyone, saving them, rather than discarding them as Kayaba did, seeking to create an entire new world. This was a reflection to show that Kirito cares deeply about people, he just can't be strong enough to open up. Everything about him is very hypocritical, except the strong feeling of having everyone as friends. And all of this is a great metaphor of Japanese life. This is one of the things explored in Analyzation, and it's all in Analyzation. This is what Sao wants to say. The world relationship with his true friend Yuji, they adventure together. In the anime, Yuji seemed just another character to me, but in the light novel it's so natural. It was a pleasure and satisfaction to see them together. Yuji is amazing. What a bromance. Speaking of world building, Analyzation is impeccable. It's indeed the peak of Sao in every respect. The world is extremely detailed and well crafted. There are two phases in Analyzation, from volume 9 to volume 14, and then to volume 15 to volume 18. The first phase is the first part of Analyzation, and the latter is the second part. Analyzation is divided in these two phases, but explaining them in more detail is a kind of a spoiler, so I won't do that. I particularly like the first part more, especially in volume 14, which is my favorite volume in the entire series, climax of Analyzation, climax of the climax of Sword Art Online. I liked the first part more because it was a great journey. You gradually get to know the whole underworld system, how this world works, who are those characters, what they do, what characterizes them, and what Kirito's goal with Yuji will be. In the second half it's more shonen action, but I prefer adventure. I said Sao is a complex story, and yes, its peak is Analyzation as well. Its greatest complexity is in Analyzation, whether it's the origin of Alice, the Analyzation project, the character Alice, among other things. In fact, this is just the type of the iceberg. The Alice project develops outside the underworld, Analyzation world, and within the underworld. There will be several other problems Kirito will face, including the antagonists of the first half of the arc. And do you want me to say more? I will, because only those who have read the original material will know. Alice Synthesis 30 and Alice Suberg are, and always have been, different characters. Can you tell me why? If you have read their novel, then you certainly can. And that brings us to the end of this video. I obviously skipped a lot. There are more criticisms, but my god, that's enough. Of course, this story has its flaws too, but it's not the topic of this video. This video was to prove it to you that it's a well-constructed, well-developed story. And no, it didn't lose its way, you just didn't understand its purpose. I didn't even mention the end of Analyzation, which is the where people also criticize. I only covered the general aspects of Kirito and the story. This work receives unnecessary hate in the West, because it's fashionable to talk negatively, when it was one of the most acclaimed stories in Japan of the last decade, and I trust Japanese tastes quite a bit. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe and like, because I really need it right now. Thanks and see you later.